Hello, today I want to talk about binding off, and I have a swatch of regular stockinette stitch and then a little swatch of 1x1 ribbing. But first I'm going to show you how to bind off with your stockinette stitch. And the first thing you do is you knit one, then you knit your second stitch, and then you take your first stitch, you come in and you pull it over the second stitch and off the needle. Then you knit another stitch, and you come in and pull off a stitch. That's all you do till the end, is you just knit and then pull over. Or you can just try to knit like I just did. And this is the most common bind off that I use it nearly all the time, unless the pattern calls for some other kind of, like a 3-needle bind off or a built-in I-cord or something like that. But this is the one I've used 98% of the time. Alright, and we've got our last stitch to knit. You just pull this over like you did all the other stitches, and then you pull this a little bit so you have a big old fat loop there. Take your scissors, cut it off, and then you've got your loop there with your front facing you. You just pull the string through the loop and pull it tight, and then you'll weave this in back here, and you're all done with that. Now for something like a rib stitch, where your stitches alternate between knit and a purl, you basically do the same thing, except you still follow the pattern as you bind off. So you knit your first one, and then you bring it in front to purl the second one. And then you take your string or your loop, first knit and pull it off. Then you knit again. And when I do ribbing bind off, I try and leave the working string in the back because it makes it easier to try to, at least when I purl again, at least when I'm actually doing the loop off, so my string's not in my way. But if you're doing if you end up doing a purl off row, I hate those. I usually try not to do them. I usually just add in an extra row to my work. You can do an all knit bind off with ribbing. I think it looks a little weird. It tends to lie in the front like this one does. And if you've gone through all the work to making a ribbing scarf, you don't want one end to be so obvious that it was the bind off end. You just want it to look like a nice flow from cast on to knit to cast off, and usually people can't tell which even was the cast off or the cast on ends. And do the same thing. You want to leave a pretty good tail, unlike I'm doing, if you're going to be weaving in your ends later. There you go. See, it's nice and, maybe you can see, it's nice and flat as compared to this one, where it's completely obvious which end you bound off. And this one is nice and even on both ends. I mean, you can still tell which the cast-on end was since, you know, you knitted it. But now it's got this nice little top. See if I can focus it. Well, it looks like a nice little knit row up top here, and you know, it doesn't mess. It stretches out the top a little bit, but it looks a lot better than just doing a knit off, because I've accidentally done that before I actually knew what I was doing too much. But there you go. There are the two bind off. Well, it's the same bind off, but now you know how to do it if you have different stitches, and if you have any kind of stitches in there, like different than knit purl, I would just go ahead and do that stitch. Unless it's a yarn over, I would just ignore it and do a normal knit stitch with that knit stitch bind off. But there you go. Thanks for watching.